I'm just gonna fill this up.
We can get started when you're ready. We have to wait until Roey's ready, and then we can finally start. Get your fucking water. I bet you drink that water too.
Yeah, I do.
And then what? Then you have no more water. And then what? You got to stop again so you can fill it up again. And then it happens again. And then it happens every week. And frankly, I think you're just drinking too much water.
Welcome back to the Watercast, everybody. All right, welcome back to the SmeshCast. You know what day it is. It is Smesh Sunday. We are fresh off the fights. And boys, if we have to pick one word to explain last night, spinny shit. Holy shit. And if I told you guys
that
last
was two words.
That was 2 words. But if I told you that we would have two spinning back kick knockouts in one night, and neither of them were performed by Marlon Moraes or Edson Barbosa, who were both on the card, what would you have told me? I mean, come on.
It was just spectacular every time. I mean, God, what is there to say that hasn't been said about that first about that first knockout, which I was very unfortunately not able to catch live and only got to see on
you saw my reaction
highlights later as I got to see Roey's immediate reaction, and then I knew I had to check that shit out right away.
Oh my God.
I was busy having dinner with my parents.
Oof,
I could have watched a guy get kicked in the head. Jesus.
Did you catch it?
I didn't catch it live, but I watched it right away. And I was just like lost for words.
Like
such like an innovative move.
It was innovative, but it's not. And actually, we can get right into that. I think this is something that one of you guys, I think Noah wanted to put in there. But just, I mean, that knockout. So first of all, what happened? Joaquin Buckley, everybody knows this by now. I'm sure you've seen the clip. Impa Kasanganai catches his kick, holds it up high. So Buckley just jumps, pivots on that leg, jumps, spinning back kick, kicks him in the head, runs away. Impa freezes in the air like a cartoon character, like he was shot in the head about a video game, and falls.
That's the classic brutal head kick knockout where you just stand dumbfounded for a half second before stumbling over.
Now,
I've seen that happen a couple of times. It seems like a natural response. Is that just because you're really well balanced on your feet when you get knocked out and it takes a second for you to buckle?
We'll get to that in a second. I think it's more so just that you stiffen up, and because you stiffen up, you don't just crumple, you just kind of stiffen up, and then eventually gravity will take you to one side or the other. But what I was going to say is that this is actually not that rare of a kick if you go to the Taekwondo world. Taekwondo people are yelling and shouting and screaming, "Oh my God, what are you guys freaking out about? We see this left, right, and center every day in the gym." Now the thing is, that's true, but Taekwondo is one of those martial arts that takes such a high level of skill, such a high level of it's not one of those martial arts that you can just kind of pick up at 20 years old, do a couple of years, and then just be amazing. The dexterity, the strange ways these guys kick and move their legs is just so high level that it is only going to start appearing now in MMA once the striking in MMA is really starting to get to that level where people are learning how to mix in those really high risk, high reward, and really high, just tough to pull off moves like that. Like those spinning back kick knockouts, like tornado kicks that we're going to start seeing more and more in the UFC once people's striking games start to really, really step it up even more.
Yeah, I mean, just phenomenal. You don't hear a lot of people talking about Taekwondo when you hear about MMA. You got you got your boxing, you got your Muay Thai, you got your Jiu-Jitsu, of course. Taekwondo and karate, the two forgotten martial arts. But every time I see somebody who is proficient in one of those sports, their striking looks so flawless. It's like watching a master painter just draw on the canvas. It's like the control of motion that they have, their dexterity, like you mentioned, Roey. God, it's always a treat to watch, and it's great to see that stuff actually get pulled off in the octagon, where you do have to, you can't just throw caution to the wind all the time and throw an extremely risky kick. You run some serious risks of getting, hit with a flying, just good old fashioned American boxing fist and just getting knocked out. That's not the kind of thing you got to worry about as much in a Taekwondo tournament, where I guess you're going to see, more of these kicks. You're obviously going to see them when you don't have to worry as much about the other weapons that people have in MMA at their disposal. And
even more so, the other even bigger thing I think is that in Taekwondo, you don't need to worry as much about balance. You can throw these crazy spinning kicks, be way off balance, fall to the floor, and they say, cool, get up, start.
Yeah.
In MMA, if you're up, let's say you manage to stay on your feet, right? You do one of these crazy kicks, even if you hit it, maybe not, you don't knock the guy out, you don't hurt the guy, you just kind of hit him, and then you're a bit off balance. He just jumps on you, takes you down in a second, and now you're in his world. So it's one of those things that's a lot harder to pull off in MMA, and that's why we haven't seen it yet. But I think we're going to start to see it more and more. And the other thing I was thinking about is that, as you were saying, I mean, Taekwondo, karate, these are these older, more traditional forms of martial arts that that you don't see much in the UFC, but you're starting to see it come in a little bit in the guys that can do it. The guys like Wonder Boy Thompson with a creative karate style, or the in-out karate style of a Cejudo when he fought I think TJ or Robert Whitaker. Those have been really, really, really useful. But I think it's actually
despite his wrestling background, GSP, another great karate.
There you go,
karate base. But
there's actually some other martial arts that have snuck in there a little bit. I don't remember. I think it's Wing Chun, is it called? I believe.
Wing Chun?
Tony Ferguson. Yeah, Wing Chun.
Yeah.
Tony Ferguson has been working on a lot of Wing Chun dummies. It's a lot of just like elbow and hand control. It's really weird. It's strange looking, but you see Tony doing these really weird things, and he catches all these elbows in tight in the clinch because he has this Wing Chun skills that people think are not at all relevant in real life, and you can't actually pull it off in a real fight. But if you're really proficient, and even more so, you know how to mix it in with everything else.
Yeah, that's key,
right? Because someone who's just a Wing Chun master but knows nothing else is going to get his ass beat every day.
Yes, I'm quite certain there are videos on YouTube of masters of these sports fighting like boxers.
But if you just take some skills from this martial art, right? You take some things from it, you can integrate it into MMA, then you're able to pull it off successfully, right? You're not going to see a boxer come into MMA and not change his style at all and do anything successfully. He's going to get taken down. He's going to get his leg chopped up from under him. You can't have a normal boxing stance in MMA. Same thing here. You can't just come in as a Wing Chun master. You need to know how to use some Wing Chun weapons in the right context, and also, of course, be just as good everywhere else.
Yeah, everything has to go through that filter of MMA. It has to be appropriately utilized within a different sport because, you are just having to worry about such a greater arsenal of weapons and such a wide breadth of just different skills that different fighters are bringing in.
You got to mix your martial arts.
I think one of the problems that there's been with, why you don't see, I think, a lot of karate, Taekwondo-based fighters, I think there's like a big misconception because, unfortunately, a lot of borderline con artists open up like karate dojos. And like they take on like McDojos is the term. That's where you get like 6-year-olds who do like 4 years of karate, and then by the time they're 10, they're a black belt and they can break boards with their foot. I mean, that stuff is great for a kid's self-esteem, and I have no doubt that these things do, they are ultimately beneficial for your kid. They increase their confidence, their self-esteem. It gives them some form of exercise, but if you put them next to, an actual karate dojo, it's, if you want them to have all those benefits and learn a useful skill, then you need to actually do some digging and find a real dojo, which are fewer and further between.
I agree to a certain extent. If you're going to talk about real skill in terms of an actual fight, fine, I agree.
Skill in a fight, I misspoke.
Right? There's everything else that you learn from
sports. If you want your kid to have a skill,
take
them, give them a hammer and teach them how to build something.
No. What I mean though is that you do learn a lot of skills from just being in martial arts, from being in sports, from being in that environment is very, very useful for a child. I just agree. Yeah, you're not going to have a guy who knows how to, because he goes into Taekwondo as a 7-year-old, can keep himself up as a street fighter. In fact, to that point, Noah, something that I don't think either of you boys know about me, I'm actually technically a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. I did Taekwondo, just like you said, from the age of like 5 till about 11 or 12. I went 2 to 3 times a week. I worked my way up. I went white, yellow stripe, yellow belt, green stripe, green belt, blue stripe, blue belt. I don't remember everything. I think it was from blue to purple to red to black. I think it was, something like that. Either way, point is, I ended up being a 2nd degree black belt by the end of it before I ended up leaving. And I can't do shit. I can throw a decent
so you
roundhouse
can't
kick,
teach
guys.
me.
I can almost
So you can't
guarantee
teach
I
me.
have a better roundhouse kick than Noah. Adam, you've been training a bit longer. Maybe you have a better roundhouse. So like I got a little bit here and there, but I mean, it didn't really do much for me. To your point.
I guess that's interesting. I mean, I hadn't really put much thought into like the whole McDojo concept, but I guess it makes sense because you know your kids can pick up a lot of like useful skills like discipline and have some confidence by learning martial arts, which is beneficial. But does it really hold up in like the pure MMA world? Like likely not.
No, certainly not. Just because little Johnny can break a board with his foot, doesn't mean that he can be like the middleweight champion. Not by a long shot.
I could do it. I got my second degree black belt. I'm not just any black belt. I'm a second degree, boys.
Yeah, so we got to watch out for you.
Uriah Hall. I'm going to spinning back kick you. Actually, Buckley, bring it. I'm going to take on Buckley next week. Let's go. Joaquin.
So as a second degree black belt,
yeah.
Do you, from that perspective, do you think that knockout was that impressive? Do you think it was really all that?
Joaquin, I am not impressed by your performance.
Classic.
But real talk though, yeah. I mean, I guess we're already on the Joaquin Buckley. We're still on that. It was crazy. Dana went up to him. He actually during his post-fight interview, interrupted the interview, walked up and was like, dude, you want to talk, when I talk to you guys before these fights about making a way to get your name out there, get yourself noticed, stand out from the crowd, this is how you do it. Sean Shelby texted me right after, said, make sure this guy gets his 50 grand before he even leaves. Just give him his check right now. Dana was like, oh, maybe I should give him all 4 performance bonuses. Just give him straight 200 grand. I'm sure he got paid a little bit of extra under the table, man. What a way to bring your name out. And against a guy, by the way, Impa Kasanganai, who had a lot of hype behind him. This is his third fight in the last 2 months. And people had their eyes on this fight because of Kasanganai. And Buckley took all of that and more with that spinning back kick. That was beautiful. Perfect.
This has really been a year of hype train, of just weird hype train stories.
And you know why? Because they aren't paying the big guys. So if you don't pay the big guys, you have to get all the little guys to fight. And these guys are not only are they getting opportunities, but they're also saying, I want to fight 2, 3, 4 times in a year. Or in a span of a couple months. So they're getting these quick storylines, these quick turnarounds lead to storylines, get you noticed. As Dana says, if you're a young fighter and you want to get up there, you want to climb the ranks, you fight often, you fight anybody, you fight when I say you want to, you make yourself available and you fight. And it works.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, unless you're like, Sean O'Malley.
He actually wants to come back in December. I hope he does. I
hope he does too. I haven't heard from him in a while.
You haven't been keeping up with his YouTube channel then. I've been watching his YouTube.
I find a lot of fighters' YouTube channels to be not as entertaining as I'd like.
Yeah.
But
I like his podcast. It's not bad.
Yeah, maybe I guess I haven't given it a fair shake. Maybe I'll give that a try.
Well, I feel like we've jumped the gun here. We went all the way through the entire main card. We went through 2 fights. We went to the third last fight on the prelims before we mentioned anything else. Let's jump right back to the top of the show, to the headliner of the show, in Marlon Moraes against Corey Sandhagen. Corey with the other beautiful spinning back kick. This is a spinning wheel kick, not just a straight back kick, and knocked Marlon down hard. I think he would have knocked Marlon out like the Edson Barbosa over Terry Adam, just like freeze in the air. That would have happened, except he didn't hit with his heel. He actually hit with his calf, right?
Yeah,
so he hit with like the softest part that he could have, and he still obviously wobbled and hurt Marlon and finished him there. So just imagine if he had hit him with that heel.
Oof, that would have been devastating. That would have been. Well, I mean, that was it, but that might have been like it. Yeah, that was a killer move. I mean, right coming out into that second round, you could tell that Sandhagen had, he seemed like he knew something that Moraes didn't at that point. He seems like he was confident. He had, figured out his timing and his distance, and it was only a matter of time at that point. He seemed just like he really knew what he was doing. Very similar to like that. The start of the second round of Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa just really came out, and it's just like, all right, I've got it. I figured it out. It's as good as done. And what do you know? It was very quick turnaround into that second round. Hell of a knockout.
what I find kind of interesting is that he stays like Sandhagen stays a lot more flat-footed, especially than Marias. Like Marias was on the balls of his feet, hopping back and forth, but Corey just pops in and out like incredibly fast. It's crazy. So I don't know. I just find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, the size difference definitely plays a role in just how he's going to approach these strikes and how Moraes has to approach his defense.
Yeah, I think I kind of look at him as a cross between a Sean O'Malley and an Israel Adesanya. In the way that
Sandhagen,
he fights.
you see him?
Sandhagen, yes. He fights very long, just like both of those. He's got. I mean, Adesanya's got great footwork, but being a middleweight, he's not as jumping in and out, right? He doesn't have as much dynamic movement. That's where that's a little bit more Sean O'Malley style, where he has a lot more movement. He knows he's really good at hitting you and getting way out of the way. The way that he was able to avoid those Moraes leg kicks early. What was he doing? He was using the Izzy type feinting. So if you look at Izzy, all he does is feint, hip feint, arm feint, touch your hands, mess with you. So does Sean O'Malley, and that's what Sandhagen was doing. And every time he feinted, he would get a reaction out of Moraes. And when you look at the Costa with Izzy fight, the reaction from Costa was defensive. Costa was scared. In this case, Moraes was trying to counter. So whenever Sandhagen went for those little feints, and Moraes was thinking he was going to attack, Moraes would go for a hard leg kick, a hard overhand. Moraes was trying to counter him, and he was missing often, and he was missing hard, which means two things: he's losing confidence and he's losing energy, right? So by doing that, Sandhagen was able to get his timing, was able to figure out the distance, and eventually counter Marlon's attacks, or get Marlon to hesitate enough that he could attack without getting countered himself. As you were saying, he was able to get in and out so beautifully with that footwork. And when you look at the striking numbers, he outstruck Moraes essentially 2-1 for that first round, and then that second round, he just had Moraes shook. He got that beautiful left head kick. He saw immediately underneath the eye, he saw it swelling up. He said, "Oh,
yeah." Then he called it. Yeah,
he yelled it out. He said, "Ah."
Do we know if he actually? Do we know that if he actually broke it? Do we have any
I haven't heard. I haven't looked. I wouldn't be shocked. Like that's what happens. Quick Google search. But yeah, he looked like he broke his orbital. Moraes looked a little bit more aggressive after that happened, especially after Sandhagen called it out. He looked like he was trying to get him back a little bit, which means that it got in his head, and he just set up the beautiful spinning wheel kick. Hurt him bad.
Yeah, there's no. Doesn't look like there's any official messaging that he broke the orbital, so we don't know yet.
But anyway, beautiful performance by Corey Sandhagen. Finished off the fight, and what does he do? He calls out, he says, the only two guys that I can see at all being relevant right now, outside of course, Aljo and Jan, who should be facing off for the title hopefully in December, is TJ Dillashaw and Frankie Edgar. I want to see the TJ Dillashaw fight. That is I am all in on TJ and Corey.
When does TJ get back?
January.
Oh, okay.
It was a brilliant call up because I feel that people probably have forgotten a little bit about TJ considering he's been out of the sport for 2 years. And so to call him out, it's smart because, where's he been? The thing is, I have a small feeling that they would probably just give TJ a title shot right off the bat.
They could, but I mean, you could make this fight easily. You could make this fight, right?
Yeah. I don't want TJ to get a title shot right off the bat. I mean, he's been out for a long time. I just doesn't seem right to me, but I think that giving him that shot against the guy who's next to go up for the title, I think that's reasonable. You can't give Dillashaw a can because he's still an incredible fighter, but you gotta sweeten the pot for him. So I think give him a fight that could dictate whether his next fight is a title shot. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly. TJ is doing amazingly well. He's in a position where he was being amazingly successful for so long, but he needs at least one fight to kind of earn that title shot. When you have such a crazy, just moving dynamic division with so many contenders, with so many top guys, it's just you can't just jump the line. And I think a fight against Corey Sandhagen, who needs one more big win after that loss to Aljo, and who really can't fight anybody except for Aljo. He's fought the who's who other than that. I think that's the right fight to make to set up the next title shot against the Aljo and Jan winner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to our co-main event. We had Edson Barbosa taking on Makwan Amirkhani, Mr. Finland, which he billed as the most important fight in Finnish MMA history, which is probably right. I mean, I don't think there's anyone else from Finland that's very big. Unfortunately for him, though, he got dominated by Edson Barbosa. He could not keep up with the speed. Edson has, of course, everyone knows some of the fastest kicks in the division, which, what does that mean? Why do you have crazy kicks? It's because you have crazy strong hips. What does that mean? It means you're also incredibly difficult to take down. And for that reason, he couldn't get his own game plan going.
Didn't they say his takedown defense rate was something like 88%, something crazy like that?
I mean, he's kind of like a Jose Aldo. If you look at these guys like Marlon Moraes, like Jose Aldo, and like
great comparison.
And like Edson Barbosa, these are the guys that just know how to kick really, really hard and really, really fast. These fast, explosive hips mean you have amazingly strong takedown defense as well. And it works so, it's such a deadly combination because these guys can't keep up with you on the feet. And so they panic, want to take it to the ground and can't. And now
and these fighters are competitive on the ground. Like most of them have black belts in BJJ. They're not just completely mindless in wrestling and grappling. But it's kind of interesting that guys like Barbosa and Moraes and Aldo, I mean, obviously Aldo's the featherweight champ for years and years, but they don't stay like directly at the top in that like 1 or 2 rank or as champion. You know, they're kind of in that like 5 to 10 range.
I think I know why. I've had a hypothesis. These guys are dangerous as hell. They're a hard out for absolutely anybody. That right, they're not easy to take on. However, there is one strategy that seems to work against all of them, and that is pressure them back, keep them on their back foot, and that way they can't get those kicks off. That's one. And two, tire them out, because when you're that explosive and strong, you cannot have the same kind of 5-round cardio as a guy like a Nick Diaz who isn't as explosive, but can keep up the pace, right? So if you can pressure them back, survive that first round, drag them into deep waters, and make them move back, you can take it off. But these are very, very difficult things to do, right? It's easy to say. The only guys that are able to really do this are those elite top 5, top 10 guys, which is why they're able to beat all the guys that below the top 15, even some top 15, top 10, even sometimes some top 5 fighters, and really always be dangerous contenders. But the really, really, really top guys know how to deal with this problem. Or I guess one more point, even if you don't necessarily, it may not be that every top guy can, but there's a certain type of fighter that definitely can. And that fighter always ends up appearing in one of those top 5s. And so you're going to end up fighting one of those guys eventually who can take on that. And so you'll just kind of hit a wall whenever you do. They're anti-wrestlers is really what they are. And so the wrestlers aren't going to beat them, as you see with Amirkhani.
That was really his only hope, during this fight. His only real success he found was on the ground, I thought.
Barbosa showed some cool like evolutions to his striking. That straight right was weird. Like it wasn't a normal stance, throw the right. He was kind of off balance, off position, and it really just it seemed to come out of nowhere, and it was so fast. And I think that's really what threw Amirkhani off so much. Knocked him down with that 5, 6, 7 times. It was beautiful. Really, really effective strike.
Yeah, great, well-fought fight by Barbosa at the end of the day. I mean, it's really a story of Barbosa's strengths, not Amirkhani's weakness or inability. It was just Barbosa's just bringing skill to the table that just, it was a great night for him, and it really showed. I was mixed, and then I eventually came around to one side of thinking, but in the last round, that ref who stood them up when Amirkhani was like his one time that he was actually on top. Who is that ref? I've been seeing him more lately.
He's been around in Fight Island. I think they have some different Fight Island refs that they've been using. One thing I've noticed about this guy, he's very mixed for me. Sometimes I really like his calls, but sometimes they really make me scratch my head. I agree.
And the one thing that I've noticed with him is he does not like long grappling or clinch exchanges if he doesn't feel, because he always says, "Come on, guys, it's a fight. Let's go." He pulls him aside. He's done this
on.
many times. It's a little frustrating because he is quick to jump the gun. But on the other hand, like with this time when he did it, at first I was upset because it's like, oh, here we go again. He's going to stand up the wrestler when they're finally able to like do something. But once I thought about it, I think he saw something that I didn't see there. I mean, Mirkani really wasn't advancing his position on the ground. He wasn't landing any strikes. He wasn't like going for any submissions. He was just really holding him and controlling him, which is fine because control time is, one metric of scoring the fights. But there was about a minute left in the third in the final round. So, I mean, at that point, I guess you've got to kind of weigh whether you feel like, as a ref, you can kind of control the entertainment. So do you want to let the last minute of the fight end with little activity on the ground?
Yes, because it's a sport.
Yes, that's the thing. So I also agree because standing them up was instantly, it doomed Mirkani. Any chance he had was out the window as soon as he did that. And it seems like you can argue a bit of a biased move.
It's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult because you stand them up and then it's Barbosa territory. You leave them on the ground and then potentially Mirkani, pulls off a submission or just keeps control time. Like it's very difficult to judge. Who, whatever move you make, you're kind of feeding into one of their territories.
I mean,
I think it's.
Wait. I think Adam. On that note, I think it's not quite like that though, because the way you made it sound like he's choosing who does he want to favor. But I mean, if he leaves it on the ground, he's not choosing to favor Mirkani. He's choosing to let the fight progress as it naturally did, which is what the ref's job is, right? The ref's job is to just let the fight progress fairly. And then if the fight is not progressing, if it's in a position where it's just stale and it won't move forever, that's when the ref's job is to make it so that it progresses. So the debate is really, was the fight progressing? Would it have progressed? And I guess it's hard to know.
That's a good analysis though, because the judge shouldn't be aware of what each fighter's strengths are, and
it doesn't matter.
Shouldn't be trying to play in. Exactly. Okay, that's a better.
I think more time should have been given to Mirkani before he was raised, but I think that a lot is given away in the fact that this ref says, "This is a fight. Come on, let's go." He's not thinking. I don't think he's sitting there thinking, "Okay, I need to time this, and if enough time passes where there's low activity, then I must stand them because that's the rules." He's thinking, I'm bored. I'm bored.
No.
This is a fight, guys. Let's go.
Now I disagree with you. I think you're going a little bit. I have a little bit more faith in the refs than that. I think they are going there. They're not going there to entertain themselves. I think they're going there to work a job, and they have dignity in that job. I just disagree with the call. I have no doubt that he thought enough time had passed and he should raise them up. He just, as you mentioned, seems to have a shorter leash with these guys in general. And I think, to be honest, when you think about it, if you're the ref in the octagon, that time, those 5-6 seconds, take a lot longer than they do for me, right?
Sure.
I'm not thinking
but this guy's consistently having this issue.
Yeah, but he's just, when it's on your, it's a consistent issue. And I think that it's just one of those things that people talk about this in the bias and the judging as well. People say it might not be conscious, but sometimes a judge is an amazing BJJ guy. And he sees some guy pull off a great move or threaten some submissions, and he might weigh it more because he likes BJJ and he values it more. Another guy might be a striker. He might value striking more. Clearly, this guy doesn't seem to value, or maybe he doesn't understand the clinch and the ground game as much. So he doesn't understand all the advances of position to the level maybe he should. And for that reason, he has a bit of a shorter leash because he thinks nothing is happening. And so he says, okay, nothing's happening. Go back to the striking, which is easy to see when someone's effective in striking, not as easy in grappling.
Yeah. And again, I'm very mixed with this ref. I think that, I think he separates guys too quickly during these exchanges that maybe slowed down a bit. But I have seen him call some very, very well done finishes. I think I've seen him call fights that. No,
I think this is the guy that you were yelling about last week, though. Either last week or 2 weeks ago, we had.
Yeah, I'm very mixed on him. There are times, I've seen him consistently, and he's my most controversial ref right now. Sometimes I really agree with what he does. I've never had someone where it's such a ratio of sometimes I really strongly agree that you made a good choice, but man, every other fight I feel like he's doing something that's just an egregious misstep.
But that's not what you can have from a referee. You cannot have a referee who is systematically or if there's a pattern of him making mistakes, he's a bad referee.
Yeah, so I think he's a bad referee, and I don't think he's as egregiously bad as some of the worst referees that there have been, but
he's just inconsistent. He needs more work. He's
yeah,
not bad. He just is inexperienced, perhaps.
Yeah, if you are right, I mean, I really have just been seeing him lately in the Fight Island fights. Maybe he does just need a little more time, but he's definitely not my favorite.
Actually, curiously, I don't know if you guys have noticed this. It's been a while since I saw Herb Dean. I think Mark Goddard has been taking on most of the main events. Chris Taione's gotten a little bit here and there. Jason Herzog has gotten a bit more work here and there. But I mean, you've seen a very clear shift where 2-3 years ago, Herb Dean, no question about it, best in the business. 7 years ago, 8 years ago, Big John McCarthy, no question about it, best in the business. Nowadays, it is shifted to, I think, Mark Goddard. I think we've seen it shift over the last 2 years or so, and it's now.
We need a ref ranking. We need a top 15 refs.
Yeah,
pound for pound,
we need a champion ref.
No, sorry, call for call. Our call for call rankings.
Oh, and I want to just rewind really quickly just because I had my one quick that I forgot about. But that ref, I don't know his name. I've just been calling him the ref that looks like Jimmy Kimmel. So next time you see him, pay attention to that.
Actually, I see that fully. This is before we move on from this fight. I guess we went on a tangent with the refs there. What do you guys see up next for Barbosa? I mean, he had that one really, really, really close fought loss against Dan Ige a few months ago. This is his first win since 2018. He was coming in ranked 14. Dan Ige was ranked 10. If you look at that top 10, I think he should get a guy between 5 and 10. He was calling for a top 5. I think that's too much right now. I think you give him a guy between 5 and 10. So I think you give him a Jeremy Stevens, perhaps. You maybe.
I was just thinking Jeremy Stevens. I think would be a good.
I can see it. A Dan Ige rematch would not be a terrible idea. Shane Burgos is coming off that loss to Josh Emmett, but that was a crazy fight. And maybe you give him an Arnold Allen, depending on depending on what you want to do with him. I think those are the guys that you really give him a chance against. One of those guys.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I think that's really all that makes sense looking at the top 15.
I don't know. Also, I don't know if you guys saw, just looking at that top 15, right below Edson is Bryce Mitchell. Dana White tweeted a video the other day, best commercial ever. It was Bryce Mitchell at some local auto dealer, and he's like, best selection in the world. Oh, sorry, really good selection. And he was just doing all sorts of stuff like that. It was a really funny commercial.
That's good. I like some personality in my
I love Bryce Mitchell.
A little sense of humor.
I think Bryce Mitchell might be my favorite grappler in the UFC.
Does he have a fight upcoming?
Apparently, he does have a fight in about a month against, I think, potentially Andre Feely.
Right. Yeah.
A great fight, actually.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. I'm not fully sure, though.
I'm excited to see him.
That would be great. So, yeah, I think Edson Barbosa against Jeremy Stevens or Arnold Allen is probably the best move to make at this point.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
All right. In our featured bout, we had a one of many heavyweight clashes, actually. I think the only heavyweight clash that went to decision, where Marcin Tybura got the third round decision over Big Ben Rothwell. Now, Rothwell looked good early. He looked like he was taking care of Tybura, but
good
Tybura
first round
was able to keep it together, and he had that hand. I mean, they both have crazy hand speed. Tybura kind of tired him out and slowly just kind of took over. He had some really great head movement, especially for heavyweight. He was able to avoid and avoid strikes a lot better than you see most guys. He looks like a gritty fighter. He's not super pretty in how he fights. He's not a super pretty guy at all. However, I mean, the guy's sneaky good. I mean, he's on a 3-fight win streak now. I don't know if he's ever going to be a world beater. I don't think he is a world beater. But
so what you're saying is you should think he should retire then.
I think he can. We should see where he can go. We haven't yet seen his potential, and I think he'll probably settle around the Shamil Abdurakhimov level, right? That kind of 9, 10, 11 round, kind of middle of the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see a little more potential. Well, I guess he is a veteran. So, I mean, while it was a well-fought fight, I guess that might be misplaced on I was going to say I see a little more potential in him. But, when I look at his record and see how long he's been in the game, I mean, it's not super often where you see someone who's been, in it for so long, just
how
like
long in the
suddenly.
UFC, though?
In the UFC, he's been fighting the UFC since 2016.
Oh, okay. Then yeah. I mean, we've kind of seen his ceiling at this point. You kind of know who he is at this point, right?
Yeah,
right.
He's had it's been a pretty mixed bag in the UFC.
But a good recent run.
Yeah,
and he'll probably get a top 15 guy.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see what happens with his next fight. See if maybe if he can pull off a finish. I mean, his last 3 wins have been unanimous decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we can see him pull off a nice finish, then we can reevaluate really where he's at.
Yeah, let him fight like a Tanner Boser or a Blagoy Ivanov would be good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Baga would be good. Baga Ivanov. Blagoy Baga Ivanov. Anyway, not too much else to say about that fight on my end. Marcus Perez, the Joker, gets knocked out by, I'm going to try to say this name, Dricus du Plessis. That's the best I can do.
That's like basically what I would have said.
Duplessis, I believe is right. I don't know how to say his first name. I apologize to you, Mr. Duplessis. However, you did have Dricus, sure. He had a interesting fight. I mean, he was coming in apparently as a very, very, very top prospect, one of the top signings that the UFC has had recently. Apparently, it was his debut fight. He's a South African fighter. And by the way, he actually mentioned he wants to be the first real African champion who is born, raised, and trains out of Africa, as opposed to all the other guys who might be from Africa but trained in New Zealand or the US.
Right.
But what was I saying? Or I guess Paris if you want to go in Ngannou.
Mm-hmm.
But he looked like he didn't have at all the timing of Perez. He was going through for a lot of big haymakers. He was swinging wildly. He was missing. He hit air a lot in that fight. Perez just has a very strange herky-jerky style, and Duplessis was going for what looked like a body shot, and as he was going, Perez just ducked his head way down. It happened to hit him and knocked him out. It was weird. Very strange knockout. Yeah. Duplessis said he was figuring out the timing. He said he thinks he really earned that. I mean, I didn't quite see it, but I'm not going to take away. I'm not going to say he didn't. I'm just going to say
I'm going to give it a quick rewatch.
It didn't go. The fight didn't quite go long enough for me to quite see Duplessis. Duplessis was saying he was seeing openings and he was able to take advantage of them. I just don't think there was enough time for him to do so and show me that he was able to do so. But I believe him when he says he sees these openings. I just want to see. I don't think
more
this tells
evidence
me
of that.
I'm not saying he's not good. He might be really as good as he's typed to be. I just didn't see it last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this finish again, and
I mean, it looks lucky. If I'm being honest.
I don't know if I'd say it's lucky. I mean, there's clearly I'm seeing in the come up to it. He's hitting some pretty. He's not pouring on the pressure like Perez is, but he is hitting some pretty solid shots. I think you're right. I think it's just we're going to need to see more evidence of his ability than what we were shown in that fight. But still, a good knockout, a good finish. Unfortunately, going to obviously get overshadowed by the spectacular finishes that there were tonight. But
I mean, look,
good fight. Glad to see the Joker get knocked out.
I mean, it was his first UFC event, and he's had, by the way, a really long career outside of the UFC, considering how successful he was. Most people aren't usually this successful and they don't usually take this long to get into the UFC. So I just think that a lot of that was octagon jitters. When you see a guy just swinging wildly, swinging for the fence really early in a fight, and he's never fought before in the UFC, I can give him a bit of the benefit of the doubt of you're not fighting at your full potential right now, and we'll see. And also short notice, no real training camp. I'm glad he got that knockout, and now hopefully he's a bit more settled. Next time we see him out, we'll get a real good idea of who this guy really is, and I'm excited for him.
Yeah, and everyone talks about those octagon jitters. You got to believe. I mean, that it has a very real effect on these fighters. On especially when it's your UFC debut. So let's see where he goes from there.
And international TV in the UFC, what you've been fighting all your life to do. I mean, think about just you going up and giving a presentation, right? There's a little bit of nervousness there sometimes. Now imagine you have to go do something, you have to go fight, and how scary that would be. And now imagine you're scared. You're fighting a UFC fighter. Right now you're fighting a UFC fighter, and then you're doing it in front of the world. It's just like,
imagine how much scarier it is to fight a UFC champion than to deliver a presentation.
Okay, so I'm saying it's
you're
scary
right.
enough just doing something low risk, but now you're risking your life in front of the world, and you're risking hardcore embarrassment in front of the world.
It's wild.
And there's everything you want to do, right? You're risking your future.
Yeah. It's really putting it all on the line. So, congrats. It was a good win. Excited to see the next fight.
Okay. Is there really much to say about the Marcus Perez? About the Aspinall and Badeau fight? I think it was a good performance by Aspinall.
Aspinall is just a really scary guy and someone to really keep an eye on. He's looking really good in the heavyweight division, and looking forward to seeing what he can do. A lot of the new heavyweight guys I've been seeing have been a lot of gut boys, and there's nothing wrong with the gut boys. I mean, some gut boys have been some of the best fighters of all time. You got some of the hardest guys to knock out, some of the hardest hitters.
Rothwell.
Ben Rothwell. A good example of a gut boy who I have a lot of respect for. But it's good to see someone bringing a little more physique into the game at that size.
Is that another thing I've seen a lot out of the new guys is hand speed. That seems to be the new growing trend of the heavyweight division with these young guys that you saw. Chris Dawkins also got a great knockout over Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira, who and he got a very quick 45-second knockout. And how did he do it? Hand speed. Hand speed seems to be the way to keep up in the heavyweight division now, or to really make a statement, because all these guys can hit hard, right? You don't need to even be a hard hitter
no
when
matter
you have
what.
250 pounds behind your shot.
Yeah, they can give you a little shove and you're across the room.
But these guys don't have, if you have no technique, if you're just swinging wild haymakers, it's just a game of luck, which is why you see that the heavyweight division guys can't stay on top as long, because there's a little bit more luck involved. But if you can be the faster guy, if you can have hand speed like Ben Rothwell has, that's why he's been able to keep up in the division for so long. Now you become dangerous. Now you become the guy who hits first. And when you hit first and you hit hard, it can be a very, very short night for the other guy, as we saw for Chris Dawkins' opponent, and as we saw for Tom Aspinall's opponent. Both of them knocked out in under 2 minutes. Beautiful performances, and these guys are going to continue climbing the ranks. I'm excited. Hopefully the heavyweight division can become a bit more competitive, a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
And I can even see these guys fighting each other.
People shake it up.
These guys can fight each other next. I mean, 2 big wins, similar styles, both quick. Either build them both up separately, or build one off the other and create a super hype train.
Yeah, I could see Tybura wanting like another top 15 guy.
Yeah, no, I'm saying Tom Aspinall against against Chris Dawkins.
Oh, okay, my bad.
I think that's a good fight. That's a fun fight. Both guys, young guys, coming up, good hand speed, knockout power, coming off some wins. I think it's a good combination.
Can't complain. Sounds entertaining.
Okay. We had some notes here about Buckley, but I think we already covered about just about everything we can about that spinning back kick knockout. But the one thing that we haven't spoken about is, I mean, my question, I guess, where does this rank among all-time UFC knockouts? A bunch of people were saying against, even in the tweet, the UFC, I mean, they're looking for clicks. So they said best knockout of all time. I don't agree with that. I think just Edson Barbosa's spinning back kick knockout of Terry Edom is a better knockout than that. But where does that rank? What are some other knockouts that this really reminded you of?
It joins the all-time greats for sure. I mean, it's a perfect combination of, a powerful knockout that looked painful, but also like great technical skill showcase. I mean, something that comes to mind is like the Showtime kick. Just like this extremely entertaining show of something that we've never really seen like so spectacularly pulled off like that. And it's just
saying the Showtime kick didn't finish Benson Henderson. That fight didn't end there. It knocked him down. He was hurt, but it wasn't over.
Whenever I see the clip, they always end the clip right after the end.
Exactly. That's the point, because they don't want to show that it continued, which is unfortunate, right? It would have been legendary if it's more like the Terry Edom
It's still pretty legendary.
Freeze and fall, but of course, it's still legendary. But
I'm trying to think. I mean,
obviously, there's like Jorge.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. The same thing.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Jorge one was that it had the story behind it, right? This had story. Impo was hyped, but the Jorge one was like there's so much hype behind the fight. It was just.
Yeah. And I think there's something to that. It's incredible to see a knockout like this from those prelim fighters or fighters that are up and coming and good prospects. It's super entertaining and like feeds a lot into their image. But if you're a big name, it just propels you to another level. Like Connor Aldo, Showtime Wonderboy. I
was gonna say James Vick getting his soul taken by Justin Gaethje. Or I mean, any one of Nico Price's knockouts, right? You have that crazy one on the back with a hammer fist from the bottom, or his insane upkick on James Vick. I think those two are also crazy. Those were a little bit more strange than this one was a lot more athletic. And also the other thing I found really interesting, Buckley doesn't do Taekwondo, right? He's not a Taekwondo, and he's just throwing. And he's 185er, right? He's a middleweight, and he looks like he's built like Mike Tyson. Like this does not look like a guy who has the flexibility and the ability to throw a spinning back kick to your head.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to go for it. We're talking all-time great knockouts, though, so you can't talk about that while ignoring Machida's front kick to the face.
Or Anderson's.
Anderson's. Yes, those front kicks to the face. Will they ever be pulled off? Will they ever be pulled off like they were back in the old days?
Or how about
fall for that again?
Joanna hit it on Michelle Watterson, and Donald Cerrone hit it on
Donald. Yeah, that was great.
But I was going to say,
always fun to watch those.
You can't talk all-time knockouts without Francis Ngannou, Alistair Overeem.
Oh, of course.
Or now this is one that hurts me a little bit. I didn't even see it live, but I'm just such a big fan of the guy.
I know what you're about to say.
What am I going to say?
You're thinking Bisping Hendo, huh?
I'm thinking Bisping Hendo, boys.
Ooh.
That's a bad one. That one, especially when I read the book, I read Bisping's book, and he talks about how, like, in the book, he has this thing. He has a little bit of, we booked the fight, we filmed the Ultimate Fighter. Then you turn the page, and he's like, I'm in the shower. My head kind of hurts. I step out and say, hey, and the guys are looking at me sadly, and I say, what's going on? And they're like, hey, you just, when's the fight? Like, I don't remember exactly what happened, but basically he comes out and he's like, hey guys, when's the fight? They're like, the fight just happened. He's like, what do you mean? I'm not fighting for another 2 months, or I'm not fighting until February or something. And they're like, it is February. You just fought and got knocked out.
Yikes.
Like, he lost months. It was.
That's uncomfortable to hear.
Like, it was really bad because
and he lost his eyeball.
He said he went like 4 or 5 times, and he's like, hey guys, like, what's going on? They're like, hey dude, just got knocked out. Like, he kept on going back, and he thought the fight wasn't for another few months.
It's remarkable that he is as eloquent as he is today, because that is some severe brain damage.
And it wasn't the only knockout he suffered, but and of course the eye damage that he took off that Vanderlei Silva head kick. But and of course Edson Barbosa, Terry Edom, all-time great. Yeah,
I mean, I think that this is going to join the ranks. I mean, this is going to be shown on clips for years to come. I mean, honestly, give it some time. This may even end up being looked back at as the most spectacular knockout in at least recent history.
I would say 2020, but I wouldn't say all time. And
it's going to be held up. I think it's easily getting held up with the all time.
I just realized my favorite knockout that I've ever seen live. This is this is above, in my opinion, Masvidal Askren. For different reasons. And that was Yair's crazy back elbow to knock out Korean Zombie. I watched this is right around the time I started watching UFC. I think this might have been the 4th or 5th full card I have ever watched, like from the beginning to the end. And it was a 5-round war. I didn't know these guys. I found Yair really entertaining. I was just watching and I thought, I was hoping Yair was winning, and he was losing that fight by the end. 5 rounds. They look at each other with 13 seconds left. They start like waving on the crowd. They're like, all right, guys, one more exchange. And with 1 second left, Yair throws a back elbow, And Korean Zombie falls flat on his face, out cold for minutes. It was just one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Knockout of the year.
Yeah, that's a crazy one, 100%.
All right, and I guess you can't go. You can't not mention all the flying knees by Yoel Romero.
Oh yeah,
which are up there as well.
Yeah, Yoel Romero is a living highlight.
All right, let's move into some news now. So I think the talk of the town the last week or so has been the insane Twitter war. Twitter trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers in Israel Adesanya against John Jones. These guys have been trading barbs that cross the line in a lot of people's minds.
They are going further and further every time, huh?
Jones went for Izzy's dad, right? He made a comment about Izzy's dad. Oh, who's your dad going to pick for this fight? And Izzy said, John, your mother would be disappointed in who you've become.
Ooh. That's an all-time shit talk, serious, high quality, best line ever. And I don't even feel bad because John Jones deserves to hear that kind of shit.
That's some deep shit, dude. That is like some haunt you at night kind of shit.
John Jones doesn't give a fuck about anything or anyone. He's a sociopath. I don't think he even cares. No, that's a little far. John Jones is probably not a sociopath.
You never know, but I mean,
you never know. We never know.
Can't diagnose. We cannot diagnose.
Yes, I think it's pretty apparent that there's quite a big distinction between his life as a fighter and his life outside the octagon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say maybe not. The way he fought when he was young was that wild, crazy, go for risk taking. I don't care. I saw this move on YouTube. Let's try it out and then knock a guy out with it kind of guy. That's just kind of who he is. Now, I guess he has changed his style in the octagon to be a lot more defensive. If only he changed his style outside the octagon to be a bit more defensive and conservative as well. Maybe he wouldn't be in the position he is now. Though he's still doing well. Question is,
driving drunk, dash cam video going viral.
So, I mean, does this fight happen? Should it happen right now? I don't think it will happen. I do think that they're going to have that Cannonier fight, and then they're going to put it on. Even Izzy said 2021 Raider Stadium, International Fight Week, and I can see that kind of makes sense on the timeline right now to have that Cannonier fight in either December and January, maybe February. Give Izzy a bit of time to bulk up a little bit, and then have it in July. Have this huge Bones fight in July.
I'll tell you what, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think this fight's ever happening. It just doesn't seem like Izzy versus Jones sounds like something that's just like not even within the realm of reality. Hell, I don't even know if Jones is even coming back for heavyweight. I mean,
no, he is.
It's just
he's coming back.
It seems like such a weird reality. I'll believe it when I see it. I want to see it. I think that at this point in their careers, I think that Izzy will take it, but can't write John Jones off, obviously.
Probably my dream scenario would be Stipe and Francis figure out their stuff, then Jones takes the belt from whoever wins that, and then Izzy comes up to heavyweight, and then they settle it at heavyweight, which I still cannot fathom the idea of Izzy at heavyweight.
Yeah,
but he says it's possible, and
I believe him.
I don't see him fighting a guy like Ngannou, right? But I do see him fighting a guy like Jones at heavyweight. Because if you look at the way that Jones fights on the feet, Izzy's got his number. I think Izzy's got him on the feet. He's got this very, very similar reach. He's got the speed advantage, absolutely. He's got the feints advantage, absolutely. He's got the footwork, I think, as well. Jones has got the defense, maybe. Izzy's got the offense and some good defense, I think. And I don't think Jones knocks him out either. On the feet is all Izzy. So the question is really, can Jones take Izzy down? And when you look at Luke Thomas actually had a long video on this. He'd released about a half-hour video talking about how competitive is Jones Izzy. And what he really spoke about a lot was the fact that those takedowns aren't there anymore from John Jones. Those takedowns are not as accurate as they used to be. It used to be that if John Jones wants you on the ground, you will be on the ground. Now it's if John Jones wants you on the ground, I hope you have good takedown defense, because if you do, you have a good chance. And the fact is that Izzy does have good takedown defense, and if he can keep it on the feet, I think he wins that fight. The only one little concern I have is that John Jones fights fair, but he fights dirty. When you think about the fact, I think I think it was Shogun he did it against, where he starts off the fight, grabs his arm and just yanks it and just twists it, and immediately
he bullies people in there. He
bullies
really
people,
bullies people.
But he does things to injure you that he knows and that aren't at all orthodox, that aren't the classic things, like just that shoulder yank, but they're gonna hurt you, and they're perfectly legal, because why wouldn't they be? And I wouldn't put it above Jones to do exactly what he said. He literally said, I'll pull your shoulder out. And I might go
back on that. I think that John Jones might be a little bit of a sociopath, maybe. I'll go back on that.
In the octagon, I think anybody is, to be honest. I think you have to be in the octagon. But
man, Jones really just wants to hurt people. Boy, he wants you to be in the hospital.
He wants to mess with your head and just show you that he's gonna beat you. And then that's kind of what all these guys do. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, on this note, talking about Jones, I mean, of course, Izzy's been all over him about the cocaine use, about the DUIs. He posted a video of Jones crying after the arrest. He did all sorts of really, he's all over Jones, including talking about the steroid allegations. And on that note, Jones actually confirmed a long rumored story where they said that one time USADA showed up at the gyms at Jackson Wink, and Jones hid underneath the cage for hours to avoid the USADA treatment. Jones has now confirmed this, saying apparently he had just smoked a blunt and didn't want to test positive for marijuana.
I can totally picture a
paranoid
hypothetical person who smokes marijuana, some hypothetical person smoking and just becoming so paranoid at a drug test that they are just like, I need to hide. I need to hide. I'm out of here. I can picture that so easily. And God, that is.
And then passes out under the cage.
Yeah.
Takes a little nap. I can easily see that. That is hysterical. I am glad to see, I'm glad that Jones confirmed that, because that is a good closure to that rumor.
Anything else to mention on the Izzy Jones? I mean, I guess the real question here is, how do we balance this Izzy fight with, I guess, Izzy and his middleweight story, and then of course John moving to heavyweight, and how that division is going to go up? Because if you see Stipe and Ngannou settle their differences soon, that means that John, in my mind, should be fighting the winner soon. I think that's what the UFC has planned for him outside of Izzy. But if Izzy fights Cannonier and Stipe and Ngannou fight soon, you're essentially going to have those two fights at the same time, which means that both Izzy and the winner of the Stipe and Ngannou fight are going to be available and ready to fight Jones at the same time, and you got to choose who they pick. And so it's kind of a weird thing timeline-wise. I think what maybe makes sense is to do the Izzy Jones fight now, while Stipe and Ngannou settle their differences, and then let Jones move up to heavyweight, win or lose. It doesn't matter what happens with Izzy, then he can go up and fight for the heavyweight championship belt after fighting Izzy. And if Izzy wins, he can go and fight, I'd say, Jan or Stipe. If Ngannou wins, I wouldn't honestly Izzy and Ngannou fighting, but I think he'd fight either Stipe or Jan Blachowicz. And if he loses, he goes back, fights Jared Cannonier, and no harm, no foul.
The convoluted path we've got there for
convoluted. It's a convoluted situation.
Yeah. No kidding. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's going to come down to a lot of backroom negotiation, and whoever's willing to, whoever they're going to pay to, actually run these series of fights. All I know is I caught on. You mentioned something about Israel's middleweight story. Israel does not care about a middleweight story. He doesn't have a middleweight story. He has an Israel story. He wants to fight he doesn't give a fuck. He will abandon middleweight belt in a second if he can find, something that will give him greater glory in the world of fighting, something that will further cement his legacy. So yeah, I don't know. I think it would be interesting. I wonder if Israel does eventually abandon middleweight and just just become a guy that just shifts between different weights and just takes on all the toughest guys in every weight class, disappears for a while, comes back and does it again.
And fights for all the belts, but then just drops the belt as soon as he wins them. Just fights for the belt, says, "Cool, I won that one. Who's next?"
GSP middleweights it.
No, I think he'll hold on to some belts. I think he will be a multi-champion, but I don't think he wants to hold up divisions, and that's why I think he'll maybe become a multi-champion, then drop a belt, and then come back whenever he feels like it. But I think a good transition here, because a lot of these questions about who does Izzy fight, when does Izzy fight, who does Jones fight, when does Jones fight, also come down to what is going to happen in general in the next 2 pay-per-views following this Khabib Gaethje fight in 2 weeks. So very recently we lost essentially both of the main events for both the November and December pay-per-views. The November main event was supposed to be headlined by Deiveson Figueiredo against Cody Garbrandt. Cody unfortunately got injured and is going to be pulling out of that fight and won't be available for a little while longer. Alex Perez will be taking his spot, but Alex Perez against Cody Garbrandt with Valentina Shevchenko co-main event against Jennifer Maia is not going to sell pay-per-view.
Yeah,
it's not going to sell anything. It's going to sell 200,000 pay-per-views max, right?
Yeah, it is what it is.
It's just not a good idea. So they're going to have to find.
It's not a fight for the mainstream fans.
So they need a main event for that. They also need a main event for December, because right now it's just Negan Anderson and Amanda Nunes. It was supposed to be headlined by Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman, but Kamaru has gotten injured and also needs some more time. So we have 2 big main events that are open for us to fill, and we have a number of fights that can potentially fill those spots. So of course we have Izzy has actually said he wants to fight Cannonier at the end of the year. If Cannonier gets a really quick finish against Robert Whittaker in 2 weeks, then I can see that potentially sneaking into that December pay-per-view if Cannonier accepts it. Additionally, we have Peter Yan against Aljamain Sterling. That has to come on. I don't think that's a main event either, but I think if you add that onto one of the cards, maybe if you put it on the November card, you have 3 title fights. It's good enough, even though there's no big main event. You've got 3 title fights. It's good enough to sell a lot. But the real big questions, the real excitement has been around, I guess, 3 fights. Those are Conor against Poirier, that is Colby against Masvidal, and that is Ngannou against Stipe. Those 3 fights, I think, are the ones to put in to fix and save these events. Interestingly enough, they are actually talking about putting Colby and Masvidal as a 5-round co-main event on the December card, which is really strange.
Yeah, that is strange. Also favors Colby heavily.
Oh, absolutely.
I already don't like Masvidal's odds in that fight. Masvidal does not have the gas tank for championship rounds. He just doesn't. I haven't seen evidence of that in the past.
Whoa, no. You can't compare his fight against Usman for that. Against everyone else he has, but against Usman, fine. He can't beat Usman.
Around Nate Diaz, Masvidal was not able to maintain his gas tank.
We'll never know.
He was very clearly slowing down in my mind. I think with the combined pressure and the wrestling that Colby brings to the picture, I just don't see Masvidal's gas tank lasting. I don't like his odds in that fight.
I agree with you that Colby will absolutely outgas Masvidal. I don't think that means that Masvidal has a bad gas tank. I think you're just comparing him to the 3 best gas tanks in the world, potentially. Definitely the 3.
But what that means is that he will never outdo the best guys in the world. He's not going to be the best guy in the world.
He will never have more gas than Colby, Usman, and Nate Diaz, because those are the 3 biggest 170 gas tanks that ever have existed, in my opinion. But he can knock guys out and he can beat them. I think he can. If he was standing with Colby, it wouldn't go 5 rounds, right? Colby can out gas him on the feet, but he can't outstrike him on the feet. I do think that when you have a guy like Colby who can spam Masvidal with takedown attacks, that's when you're able to really put it up against Masvidal. I think that's what's going to be successful against him. And yes, of course, the gas tank, but it's the takedowns that are going to force Masvidal to empty out that gas tank. And that's what's going to win it for Colby, I think.
Right, yeah. Just doesn't look good for Masvidal in that fight. I mean, I don't think it ever really looked good for Masvidal in that fight. Colby has looked pretty spectacular lately, to be honest.
In 3 rounds, I actually don't know. I think you could give Masvidal a chance in 3 rounds for sure, but in 5 rounds, I don't think so.
In 5 rounds, I think no.
But Conor Poirier, man, that is hype. I really need to see that fight. I think that there's less hype around it than you would think, and I think it's because people just don't believe it yet. It's kind of like where I'm at. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Izzy and Jones. Believe when I see it.
yeah, there's still been quite a bit of time since the beginning of the talks, and then both sides saying they've signed, but no official word from the UFC that the fight is going to happen.
In fact, I haven't heard anything from Dana it feels like a month. I feel like I haven't heard a Dana White interview in forever, which is weird because I've been trying to find them. They aren't doing post event interviews with him. I think part of that might be the fact that right now November, December is so wild and crazy, and they have so many moving parts that he doesn't want to answer questions about it because it's just too crazy, and he knows that the second he says anything, it'll get written up and it'll be transferred everywhere. And
it's gonna be the only thing anyone's talking about.
But I'm really, really hoping he can put some of these fights together in the next couple weeks before they leave Fight Island, and we can have some clarity. But who do you guys think taking this Poirier Conor rematch? I'm gonna say that if Conor is top Conor, he beats Poirier. But anything other than that, I think it's Poirier's game.
Yeah,
anything other than top Conor.
Good. Poirier even, he even almost got that finish on Khabib with that guillotine choke. I mean, maybe the closest anyone's ever come. Yeah, God, on Conor's best day, I mean, like if he comes out high pressure, high skill, like he did with Cowboy, but I think that Poirier is much more prepared to intelligently defend.
Yeah, he's very durable.
I mean,
so is Conor.
That's true.
I mean, in terms of grappling, it's a pretty murky area because you've seen him get tapped out by Nate and Khabib, but when he's hit and like potentially outstruck, he stays like he's not backing down.
I mean,
that's a hard one to call.
Dustin is known to charge a little bit, right? He does have that switch step blitz, and I do think that Conor knows how to deal with that kind of striking. I think that Conor can beat Poirier for sure. I think if it went past 3 rounds, I would go Poirier for sure. Poirier's got that grit. Poirier knows how to dig deep, and we haven't seen Conor be able to do quite that to that level. Maybe against Nate Diaz, but it was survival. It wasn't real offense. Again, I think that both guys at their best, Conor wins. But I think Conor is such a wild card.
Towards Conor.
Yeah, he's just such a wild card with who is going to show up. What is he going to be training? How hard is he going to be training? How sober is he going to be coming up? Yeah. What's his mindset?
Are you saying that the more sober he is, the lower of a chance he has to win?
I think that's the more sober he is, actually he has a much higher chance for sure. Because I mean, we saw it in all his fights, right? But I don't know. I need to see Conor in fight week to make a real decision on this one.
Need to see how he is addressing the crowd and the journalists and see what his mentality is going into it, and that's pretty good tell for Conor.
But I get that 4th round TKO by Dustin Poirier vibe. I don't know. That's just my vibe right now. If it happens, awesome. That's my.
I want Poirier to win because just because anytime Conor always runs the risk of he can win and like be right there ready for a championship spot, and then he could just disappear for another 2 years and just come and gone. I want to see someone who can, someone win who can actually, who is willing to actually move forward the division and won't just put everything on pause.
Yeah, I mean, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I get the feeling that the motivation from Conor is extremely strong, and I think that there is like a deep urge for him to come back and beat Khabib, and I think he will really show it if this fight comes to fruition. Unfortunately, similar to John Jones, I mean, completely different scenarios. There's a life inside the octagon and a life outside, and we've seen from both fighters that maybe they haven't performed some of the best actions outside the octagon, but in terms of like strictly fighting, we can see that Conor can become extremely motivated, and I think it's like within the realm of possibility that he'll come to this fight totally prepared and take him out.
Any Conor fight has the potential to be Conor's best fight. It's about him. It's about how he wants to approach it going in, how motivated he is. If he really wants to make 2021 the year of Conor's return, then he brings it. But I guess it depends on how scatterbrained he is.
Yeah. And it depends on where the division is at, right? I mean, Tony Ferguson is still in the mix, and we want to see where Tony Ferguson ends up. Another interesting development in this lightweight division, and I guess on the Khabib level, on that Khabib card, Khabib's big teammate, Islam Makhachev, another huge up-and-comer in the 155 division, just lost his opponent in RDA to COVID. He is still on the card. I don't know if you guys saw last night. They put the card up on the broadcast, and they kept him on the card. They said Islam Makhachev against TBD. So they are planning on finding him in a fight, is what that tells me, right? I think you have a few good fights. I think the number one fight that makes the most sense for everybody involved, in my opinion, is the Michael Chandler fight.
Yeah.
I think, Michael Chandler needs a top guy to debut against, and I think Islam Makhachev is a top guy. He might not be high enough ranked for Michael Chandler, but in terms of skill, it will tell us exactly where Michael Chandler is, and it also will tell us exactly where Islam Makhachev is. I think that's a great fight to make. Chandler's already cutting weight. He's already going to be ready for that fight. He's already on Fight Island. Why not just give him Makhachev? It makes sense. That was also being offered to Dan Hooker. And it has also been offered to one other fighter. I don't remember. Oh, Tony Ferguson as well. So Ali and Makhachev called up Ferguson, Chandler, and Hooker.
Yeah, I think Chandler makes sense.
Yeah, it by far makes the most sense.
Tony makes really not very much sense to me.
I would agree. I don't think that makes sense.
No, it makes no sense for Tony to take anything other than the absolute top of the top right now.
He should fight Poirier. He should fight Connor. He should fight Chandler. He should fight Khabib.
Let's finally get McNuggets in that octagon with Ferguson.
I'd love it.
A little Tiramisu Tuesday.
Tiramisu Tuesday. And one more thing, actually, I forgot to mention with the Connor Poirier card. Connor's actually saying if the fight happens, he will donate $500,000 to Dustin Poirier's Good Fight Foundation charity. Beautiful move by Connor. I don't care if you think it's out of being nice. I actually do think it's genuine.
I mean, it's more money than I've ever donated to anything. So you got to give that.
$500,000 is nothing, especially considering what he'll make from the fight. But I actually don't think it's a publicity stunt. I think it's genuine. It's respect.
It's always publicity.
There's a bit of it. I think this one. I think Connor actually has a good heart. I think he knows. I think he does a lot of work for his community. You'd be surprised. There's a lot he does.
He did a lot of work for his community when he punched that old man in the back of the head.
I can
tell you that. I've never donated that amount of money to charity. I've also never punched an old man in the back of the head.
No one's gonna say he doesn't have his problems, drug abuse, of course, partying, extravagant life, but the guy does actually give back. He has worked hard. He has a lot of foundations that aren't publicized outside of the UFC.
We're going to get into some real controversial territory if you're going to continue to try to argue with me that Connor's a good person, because we could talk a lot about certain pending sexual assault charges. There's a lot of things we can talk about that maybe don't belong on this show.
Here's where I think I would close it. I think he certainly has a lot of respect for Dustin. There's a really old video of Connor analyzing old fights. This is probably like 4 or 5 years ago or something like that, and he's in an interview and he rewatches the Dustin fight, and it like shows Dustin's reaction when Connor gets his hand raised, and he just had like a really genuine response saying like, I really don't like to see that. I don't like to see my opponents take that sort of damage, and it's unfortunate. We come in and we put our lives on the line. So I think he has a genuine respect for him, and for him donate. Yes, yeah.
All right, we can end it there. If we want to do other 155 discussion, this is a bit of a more lighthearted one. I don't know if you guys saw. I think you guys did see. You guys just sent this to me actually. Justin Gaethje retweeted or tweeted a picture. They spelled his name wrong on the Khabib versus Gaethje ad on the side of the octagon on the event last night.
What kind of effort are they going to have to put into? They're going to have to fix that last minute. They're going to have to spend some money getting like a new covering put on and get that all remade. Someone's getting fired for that shit. Sure.
I don't think that they're going to have too much issue replacing a little post.
Like, how do you make that error? You know that J is in there. You know that the J is in the name.
Well, they gauge fee into the gate.
How do you make that fuck up with a title? Has that ever?
and it's one of the biggest fights of the year. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, and it's
not
not just a contender. He is like technically the interim champion.
Right. Like, I mean, you have these other crazy names that you're writing, like Shamil Abdurakhimov, and you get that right, but you can't do a Gaethje.
Put some respect on the man's name. Just rude.
Well, speaking of respect on a man's name, Darren Till has not been putting so much respect on Mike Perry's name. Mike Perry
has been doing that for a while.
So, I mean, that's, I guess, anyone he talks to, but Mike Perry took a page out of the book of Josh the Pug Thompson. Josh Thompson was on his weighing in podcast talking to Big John McCarthy, and they were talking about, actually, Josh Thompson had the idea of when Coach Latore, when his girlfriend coached Mike, Josh said, hey, why don't you just get a rich guy to pay you to be in your corner and do nothing? Because why not? Mike took that to heart, apparently, and he said, whoever pays me the most amount of money can be in my corner. A Reddit guy already, it looks like a guy from Reddit's going to do it. But I mean,
isn't there also, there's a cam girl in the works. There's a porn site that wants to get a couple of their girls working with them. There's a bidding war. There's a bidding war.
Yeah. Abraham Cowell was talking about how he has a couple NFL guys that are trying to bid big to get in there. I mean, I think there's a couple things to talk about here. First of all, it's hilarious what Till is doing, saying, hey, it should be me. How much are you guys going to pay me to throw in the towel for him? Amazing.
Amazing. Incredible.
Best, right? But I think the other interesting conversation is, first of all, should this be allowed to happen? Second of all, will it be allowed to happen? And third of all, if it is, will it continue?
It should be allowed. I think it will be allowed.
Will it continue?
I don't think anyone's fucking dumb or crazy enough to do that shit.
Well, I mean, tricky. You don't. Well, go on. Yeah.
It's just like, look, it's fun. It's random. It's like kind of exciting, I guess, but it just makes no sense. Like, why have anybody?
Brand. It's on brand for Mike Perry.
Why have anybody but your coaches and cornermen in your corner, like, trying to properly dictate the fight for you? I don't know.
I think that Mike Perry, him bringing his girlfriend into his corner, wife, girlfriend, whatever, bringing in his partner
mama
into his corner. Yeah, there you go. I think that it's a testament to, I think there's some people that just are not good at like listening to instruction or hearing like, here's what you're doing wrong, or taking criticism. And I feel like when you have a kind of person that's really averse to taking criticism, and then you combine the adrenaline of they're in the middle of a fight, I feel like Mike Perry might recognize some tendencies in itself, say, oh, if I'm in the middle of a fight and like my coach says, oh, you did this wrong, you got to do this, he might just get up and punch his coach in the mouth. So I think that he knows, having someone in my corner, it's not helpful. Maybe it even makes things worse.
But that's for Mike Perry.
He just doesn't want to listen to instruction.
No, but I'm going to agree. Fine, that's fine. That's a Mike Perry thing specifically. But I mean, I don't doubt why he is doing it, and whatever, do your own thing. But will this be allowed? Like, will the UFC allow this? Because I mean, you're going to see this as a trend, especially for main events. If you're a main event fighter, you get 4 cornermen, not 3. If maybe you don't need an extra cornerman, maybe you say, I only have really 2 coaches I need. Maybe I auction off the 3rd spot every time, or the 4th spot. You don't need. I agree. No one's going to start doing this and auctioning off all 3 spots. But if you start being the guy that auctions off 1 spot every time, you make an extra 10, 15, 20 grand every fight. And when the UFC isn't paying you much as it is, maybe it's worth it, right?
And people aren't going to jump on this though.
But this is also a really bad look for the UFC.
Yes, for sure.
I think they don't want this to happen. And so I think they're going to put some pressure on the commissions. They're going to try to find a way to shut this down. And what this will do, actually, it will force the commissions to regulate who's allowed to be a coach. Because that's the only way you can really do this, right?
That's weird, though. That's strange.
You have to put some sort of limitations on who you're allowed in your corner. That seems to be the only way to solve this problem. And so,
no more Diego Sanchez.
That could have some positive implications potentially in the sense that maybe you won't have some bad cornermen, or maybe you can, because you're regulating who's allowed in the corner, you can then sanction people for maybe not throwing in the towel or not being a proper corner person. It has some negative implications of, okay, well, Dom Reyes had his brothers in his corner. Why shouldn't you be allowed that? Sometimes a fighter will randomly go in a corner last second, just like we saw Paul Felder did a few weeks ago. These things do happen, and who's to say who is who's knowledgeable enough or who deserves to be in a corner. If Coach Latore, quote unquote, right, if his girlfriend or baby mama was with 2 other actual coaches, and her presence genuinely helps Mike Perry, who are we to say she can't be there? So it's like it's a really, really delicate playground, right?
And I don't know if I like someone being able to make that judgment of who is or is not allowed to coach you in your corner. I mean, it could severely handicap certain fighters if they maybe just decide, okay, your coach is wacky, you're doing weird stuff. I don't want you to have a coach when you're out there playing touch butt in the park. You can't bring them here. That's not a real coach. They're not helping you. You need to use our official sanctioned list of coaches. I don't like that. It seems like, when you get these the sports world, and especially the combat sports world, is no stranger to corruption. So, when I hear a move like that gives, some administrators that much control over what a fighter can and cannot do,
But to counter that, what happens if the guy from Reddit throws in the towel?
Then God, that'll be all over the news, and Dana will love it because any publicity is good publicity.
No, I'm actually I'm gonna say, Adam, in that case, I'm actually gonna say that's not as much of a problem because you put that risk on yourself by taking the money from the guy. However, I'm actually gonna say the opposite is actually the problem. What if you're in this fight where you're getting your ass whooped for 15 minutes in a 5-round war, and you have 2 rounds to go, you can barely stand, the referee hasn't called the fight. Is a Reddit guy supposed to tell you whether or not to throw in the towel? And so you're not going to do it. And by the way, even if the fighter wants to throw in the towel, usually they have a way of letting the coach know without making it obvious on the broadcast. They can't do that with a Reddit coach. And if they did, who would know? It's too dangerous, right?
Reddit coach.
It's dangerous to just let anybody there, because it is a very, very serious job with very, very serious and real world implications.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I think that it's
so
just
hard.
I think because of that risk that you're taking, I think that most people with some level of intelligence would never in their life make this decision to have a random coach like that.
No, not if they had one. They can throw one in there though. Throw one out of the 3.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think you just let it be up to the fighter's choice. If the fighter is gonna, put themselves at risk like that, if some dumbass like Mike Perry wants to risk maybe getting so severely beaten and then having someone who's not qualified not throw in the towel, that's a risk that he's gonna take. You just got. It's just about you think it through or you don't.
I think it just puts a bad image. It puts a bad image on the UFC because, to some extent, it might display that the fighters aren't being paid enough, so now they're using external resources like having famous cornermen pay to be in their corner because they're not getting sufficient pay from the fights themselves.
I'm also wondering just how, after the initial novelty of this going, I mean, how many people are really going to be willing to pay that kind of money to be in a corner for
a ton. If you're a rich person, that's an easy bucket list thing, right? If you're some big shot, think about how much these guys spend at the club, right, on a random night. You think these guys aren't going to be willing to spend 5-10 grand, or you think managers? In fact, I would say, put it this way. It's essentially the same thing as getting courtside seats to the Lakers game.
Yeah,
and managers buy that for you.
True. That's
and managers
fair.
buy this as gifts.
No,
right?
I see. I got you. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Hey, Brad Pitt, we want you to star in our movie. I know you. It's an action movie. Just to get you into the action, let's get you into the action.
You know what? That raises another. I don't want to see people coming into the corner and paying to do that, and then they come in and they every time the round changes and they get a microphone, they get to just talk about their new movie or the new Taco Bell.
Or they're waving in the background.
Burrito. We know Drake is a fan of Conor. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped $500,000 just to be in his corner.
I think Conor's a different story. I don't think anyone's going to get in Conor's corner, but
yeah, but you get what I mean.
I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It's tricky.
I don't know what to do about it, but I'm quite certain that Dana's going to do something about it, and not just let this slide.
The Rock drops $2 million to be Masvidal's cornerman.
Yeah. Mike Tyson dropping a couple $100,000.
Masvidal wouldn't ask for any money if the Rock was in his corner. He'd do it for free.
By the way, completely unrelated. Speaking of Ngannou, did you guys see Teddy Atlas training Ngannou?
No,
Yeah,
I
great
did not
stuff.
see
Oh
that.
my God, dude. When you watch, first of all, Teddy Atlas is one of the most brilliant boxing minds ever to live. And so when you see him coaching Ngannou and showing him these drills, man, it's amazing. And Ngannou's movement, you can see the improvement. You can see the excitement in Atlas's voice and in Ngannou. And he says to Ngannou, I can't teach you in one day, but I can open your mind. And that was just damn. It was amazing. I recommend everyone check out that video. Teddy Atlas training Francis Ngannou in boxing.
Okay.
Beautiful. One more thing, or two more pieces of news to cover this week. We had Darren Till, in addition to his headlines with Mike Perry, he has also called out everybody's favorite hype train, Khamzat the Wolf Chimaev. I believe he, as you have here in the notes, he probably is the highest profile fighter to actually call out Chimaev.
Let's give him a chance.
Chimaev has, apparently both Wonderboy Thompson and who was the other fighter? I think it was Leon Edwards rejected Chimaev fights.
Which obviously, why would they take that fight?
Yeah. So it's going to be curious to see who they have him up against. I really have a feeling it's going to be Neil Magny. He's not a big enough name to be able to justify getting a top 5 yet. I don't think Magny is. So I think this is a good fight for him. He's on a big winning streak. We kind of know he's very, very good, and I think Chimaev runs him over.
Yeah, but if he wins, then it doesn't do anything maybe for his ranking, but it's a very big publicity.
You know who else turned down a Chimaev fight? Chris Weidman.
Oh yeah, saw that. I mean, if I was Chris Weidman, I'd be bloody terrified to face this guy. I mean, Chris Weidman is just trying to get back to the swing of things of his career, and he wants to just end it.
He has no chin as it is. You're gonna give up your chin to one punch Chimaev?
He's making the right choice, but it also shows that for all the kind of big talk that Weidman had planned about, really getting back into things, and he's got it in him still. I mean, if he's not going to take this fight, clearly he knows that he's not getting a championship. He's not holding a belt again ever. Because I mean, if you can't beat this guy, what chance do you have at holding the middleweight championship? I mean, it would make sense for him to take the fight in theory, but he's gonna get beat. He's gonna get his ass beat. Might be the end of his career.
So what do we do with Chimaev now? I mean, it's just no one wants to fight him. He's a problem for anybody, and he's a problem to book because he's just so high level. He can fight in 2 divisions. He can fight literally anybody.
I see it remember that scene in everyone's favorite, another hype train that got derailed, Game of Thrones. Remember that? Remember when Cersei's gonna choose the Mountain for a champion, and they're just throwing guys in there in an arena with him, and they're just here, you 3 guys fight him, and he just cuts them all in half. That could be Chimaev's future if some of these higher profile guys don't start biting.
I want to see them book him 2 fights in one night. I want to see him be the co-main event and the main event for the same card.
That would be. They'll never do
that.
They're too high of a risk. If he loses, then
I want to weigh in at 170 and then fight 185 for the co-main event and then 170 for the main event.
Maybe they'll sweeten the pot and they should have him at 170 fighting middleweights, and then maybe someone else will take him.
So he has to make 170. They have to make 185.
Yeah,
and then that way
finally
fair.
That's all right. All right, now it's fair. Now we're good.
Oh God. I don't know what you do with him other than Magny, but it'll be really fun to see. And I hope if he gets a big enough name, big enough win, people are willing to fight him. I hope.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, I mean, you can't just. I mean, if a guy's just tearing through the division and all the, all the what do you call it? All the lower ranked guys or, unranked guys. I mean, at a certain point, you can't just ignore him. You have to either take on the fight, especially when he cracks into that top 15, which probably after his next fight, he will, if he wins. At that point, you have to accept the fight. You can't run away or else everyone will call it for what it is, running away. Right now, it's making a smart move to not fight an unranked person. Right now, it's a smart move. Once he hits that ranking, he's going to immediately get thrown to the Sharks, and whether people want to or not, they're going to have to fight him.
All right, lastly, Derek Brunson has made some headlines recently. He has called out Paulo Costa. I actually love this fight. Brunson's on the up and up. We all know that. Brunson's been winning, 3, 4, 5, three fight winning streak, I want to say. And he just took out not Brad Tavares.
Edmund
Shabazian, who had taken out Brad Tavares himself in the past. He just took out Shabazian, and that was a great win. Beat him in 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with Paulo coming off that loss, these are guys heading in opposite direction, but Paulo's at the top of the division, right? And so this Brunson fight, it's given him the chance, actually, if he wins it, to potentially fight for the belt. And I think this is good for Brunson. I don't think he ever will stand a chance with Izzy. We saw what happened the first time, and Izzy's only gotten better since.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good fight for both guys. Get Costa back, someone who's dangerous, but maybe not the very, very top of that division.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fight that makes sense, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good call out, very smart call out, and I'd love to see that fight.
All right. Well, I guess that covers just about all the news for the week. Let's move on lastly to next week's fight card.
Little sneak preview.
We have a fantastic main event. We got Brian T-City Ortega making his finally it was been almost 2 years since he fought and lost to Max Holloway. And the 4-round fight which he got really pieced up and took a lot of damage, but he's back.
Holloway put on a clinic.
And he is fighting the Korean Zombie. Zombie coming off some big wins. He had a huge knockout over Hinato Moicano. And this fight has been booked 17 times, I want to say. It's finally coming. Both guys had some injuries. Coronavirus happened, everything, But here we go.
Finally.
Chan Sung Jung. He also beat Frankie Edgar. I forgot about that. So he's coming off a bunch of big wins. I'm really excited to see this fight.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting, fast-paced brawler. Really excited. I find it very funny. They were advertising for it last night during the card. And unless I missed something, it seems like they're kind of changing the narrative because they show the footage of like the little scuffle that happened between Ortega and who you wouldn't know if you watched the advertisement the UFC put out. They just show a fight happen during a thing, and they show Brian Ortega yelling and talking about how he hit someone. They do not mention that he did not hit the Korean Zombie. He did not fight the Korean Zombie. He hit his translator. His buddy, just a dude. He just assaulted a guy, and the UFC just does not want to show that. They want the narrative to be that they want you to imply from what they show, or they want their implication is that he got into a fight with Korean Zombie. That's not what happened. Korean Zombie went to the bathroom, and that's when T-City made his move and attacked a musician. So they really, I don't know. They don't want that. They don't, I guess Brian does not want to play too hard into the heel. UFC just really wants to brush over what happened and just make it, these are just two guys with a feud, not
Though, to
Ortega
be honest,
did some really dumb shit.
No, I gotta say, Ortega is reminding me more and more in the way in his personality, like Jorge.
Yeah,
he's got that West, that kind of he's West Coast, right? Not East Coast, I believe.
Yes, I'm not sure. Yeah, he seems more West Coast to me.
I think he's California.
I think he is from California.
But regardless, he has that. He's that street kid. Where he's like, I don't take shit from anybody. I have that kind of that street vibe and that chip in my shoulder. You talk shit, you get hit. That's kind of that's really his thing nowadays. I just want to see where he's at. I think that we know how amazing Korean Zombie is. His boxing is just so top notch, especially recently. And I think he very much poses a challenge to Volkanovski. Not that I favor him in that fight. I think it's a very good fight though. I just don't know who Brian Ortega is 2 years after that Max Holloway fight. We know he has some of the best jiu-jitsu in the world, T-City, for a reason. How has his boxing progressed? How has his confidence progressed? How will the ring rust be? Has he really fixed those holes, or has he done who is Brian Ortega? We don't know anymore. He was such a young guy, and he has had so much time off. I'm really excited to see who comes out on Saturday night.
Questions will be answered.
I love to see the fight go to the ground. Korean Zombie's no joke on the ground either.
Yeah, but he's not Brian Ortega. I think very clearly Korean Zombie does not want to be on the ground with Ortega.
There's footage with Korean Zombie going. What's Ortega's coach's name?
Henry Gracie. Yeah. So I saw the footage with Henry Gracie where Henry went to Korea.
Yeah, and they've rolled a bit, and like I don't know. Listen, he's still super competitive on the ground. Yeah, it's not like Ortega is now fighting a white belt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Henner is Henner, right? Ortega is not even Ortega is not Henner Gracie, and Henner of course choked him out in a matter of a minute each time, while playing with him. But of course he's not Henner Gracie, and there was no striking in that, which can go on for either side. But speaking of Henner Gracie, actually, so he is Brian Ortega's head coach, and he has actually unfortunately tested positive for COVID, and so he actually will not be coaching or cornering for Brian Ortega. Maybe Brian should auction off that third spot and for Henner's in Henner's place. No, but we can
pull some money together. We can do
it. SmeshCast will put together a little GoFundMe.
Yeah, easy.
Go fly me to Abu Dhabi. But yeah, I mean that's gotta hurt. Henner isn't a boxing coach. I don't know if T-City really needs a lot of ground coaching, but it's a guy who is probably a very big mental part of Brian's game.
Big part of the team for sure.
Yeah,
so I think that's a disadvantage.
As a disadvantage for sure.
It's a shame. I'm gonna give the fight to Korean Zombie. I think he's gonna knock him out. I think that Korean Zombie just brings just a level of power that's just too much. And for somebody who's been out of the game for 2 years, I think it's going to shock him.
I mean, he is a favorite. He's a -190 favorite, almost a 2-1 favorite, actually. I am leaning KCB.
Yeah.
However,
I think I am as well.
I think if top Brian Ortega comes out, I do think Brian Ortega can win. I just don't have enough confidence in Brian Ortega being top notch, having not fought in so long, having his coach out there. I just don't know if we're going to see top Brian Ortega. But if we do, that's a really, really good fight, and I think I can see Brian winning that.
Yeah, I don't want him to. He doesn't deserve to win after all the build up to this shit. He's a piece of garbage after everything he did. He doesn't deserve to beat up Korean Zombie's friend and then beat up Korean Zombie. That would be too much. That'd be too much. It's like a bunch of older kids beating up your little brother, and then you go to defend your brother and they beat you up too and piss on your shoes.
Well,
it's just humiliating.
I'm in that case really excited to see what his post-fight reaction is, win or lose, and we will discuss that next week on the SmeshCast. But yeah,
Korean Zombie loses, Jay Park files assault charges.
And then he just and he files it for whatever the win money was for Ortega.
Exactly. Excited for that one. That'll be good.
Yeah. So I'm just to be the odd man out. I'll say Ortega, but I am leaning Zombie, but I'm gonna go put the gamble on Ortega. I think at plus 160. I think he's worth a bet.
So you're really gambling on us being wrong. You're not gambling for Ortega winning. It's that I'm confident that you two are going to be wrong. So I'm going to do the opposite.
No, I want to be the odd man out. That's the idea.
So no matter what, somebody gets to be shitty and overconfident next time.
Exactly. I mean, Noah, I wasn't a dick to you this week. You picked Moraes last week, and Moraes got spinning head kicked. So, you win some, you lose some.
What are you going to do?
Also on this card, we have Cyril Gahn, who is a very highly touted prospect out of France, heavyweight prospect. He came into the UFC at 4-0. He is now 6-0. He has 2 wins. He's mostly a striker, really, but he has, I believe, 2 submissions in the UFC. He got a knee bar with like 5 seconds left to go in a heavyweight matchup. I don't remember what the guy's name was, but it was a Contender Series guy. Cyril Gahn is a really interesting guy. They're really trying to push him, but they're putting him against other inexperienced guys. You can see they put him against some inexperienced guys out of the Contender Series, and now they're putting him against a guy, Ante Delia. Don't know who this guy, or Ant Delia, or Delija. I don't even know how to say this guy's name. He has no picture on Google. He appears to be a brand new fighter. Mysterious
stranger.
They call him the Walking Trouble. He's 30 years old. He's 6'5", 251. Trains at a Crow Cop top team. And look, he has some big wins. This is going to be his UFC debut. But I mean, he actually has a loss against Marcin Tybura, interestingly enough. So, but a win over Valentin Overeem, who I think is Overeem's brother or cousin, one of the two. Regardless, this guy is making his debut. I think that's the reason they're putting him against Gon. They're really trying to build Gon up, give him some time to develop his skills because he is so green. But they see a really good future. That's why they're putting him in the co-main event, trying to build this name up as well.
So a lot to look forward to next week.
So yeah, I'm excited about Cyril Gon. Interestingly enough, the prelims are headlined by two guys making their debut. Neither guy has a picture on their Google. We have Mathieu Gamrot against Guram Kataladze. I can't even say these guys' names. I don't know who either of these guys are. It's just really surprising to me that they're headlining the prelims having never fought before. But one guy is a Polish guy fighting out of ATT. The other guy, I don't even know. No, okay, as a Georgian. So you have two Europeans. That'll be an interesting fight at 155.
Yeah, good. Always good to throw some of the new meat.
Yeah, so this is the only fight I would say I'm actually really interested in, or not. Sorry, not really interested in. The only other fight I really want to discuss. I think a lot of these fights are interesting, but the only one worth discussing. Right. Jessica Andrade is making her comeback, but not at 115. Andrade is moving up to women's flyweight to 125, and she was going to be taking on Caitlin Chukagian. So Chukagian actually, I believe, is coming off her recent loss to didn't she just lose to the title shot against Valentina?
No, but
yes, she did.
I feel like she won another fight after, no?
So she just lost to Valentina, and then she beat Antonina, Valentina's sister.
Oh, right, she beat her sister.
Okay, and so now she has another win, and so she's a top contender in women's 125. Not that it's a very top division, but she has one loss to the champion, and then she's won since then. So she's still right at the top 5. I'm not sure what she's ranked, but Jessica Andrade was the champion, lost her belt, lost the follow-up fight to Rose, and is now moving up. I think she has the power. I think the power will carry to 125. I think if you have knockout power at 115, I don't see why you wouldn't at 125.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see if she's able to get things done. The one thing I worry about is that her style is still very plotty. She walks heavy and walks you down. She doesn't have footwork. And I don't know how far she can get without footwork. And I think she'd get destroyed by Valentina.
Yeah, that footwork really, good footwork really goes a long way. And
it's too
slow. When you watch somebody boxing against somebody who, has strong footwork and mobility versus somebody who's just a stationary target, it tends to not go well for the stationary target.
I feel like the UFC is hoping that Andrade takes it, because that it is a little bit more of a not necessarily competitive but bigger name matchup for sure. Valentina being a former champion. So
I do think that if Andrade wins this, I think that is actually probably their move. I think Andrade is definitely the most exciting name to fight Valentina outside of the lioness herself, Amanda Nunes. And definitely the most interesting fight at 125. The other fight I'd like to see, I really want to see Valentina, though I don't know how you can make this happen. I really want to see Valentina take on Holly Holm. I think it's a really, really good fight. I think it's a really interesting fight. The only problem is that it doesn't really work because, of course, Holly doesn't have a belt, and she's not going to go down to 125. So Valentina would have to fight at 135 for nothing.
So there's your dream fight.
But that is one of, I think if Amanda gives up her belt, and I would want to see a GDR versus Holly Holm rematch, and the winner faces Amanda Nunes. The winner faces Valentina Shevchenko at 135 for Valentina to become the double champ, and then Amanda comes back, faces Valentina to get her 135 belt back, and that's the perfect situation because now you have double champ facing off against a former double champ for the one shared weight class champ. It's perfect. I think it's really good.
Yeah, clearly giving this a lot of thought.
I totally didn't just think of it right now. Anything else to add to this week, boys?
No, excited for next week.
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, I think it's been a good episode. As always, everybody, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, the usual shebang. We will see you guys next week talking about Korean Zombie against Brian Ortega, and I can't wait.
Yeah. All right.
Catch you guys next week.
Bye. Bye-bye.